working on a new generation for human space. It is indeed an exciting time to be here. On this tour, we will share the experience and history that is the Johnson Space Center. Welcome.
We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energy
Wells University in 1961. We're now approaching the rocket launch, For now, take yourself back to the year 1967. The Mercury's final move was sinking, but the political climate was not so upbeat. 500,000 American soldiers were stationed in Vietnam, and tensions of the Cold War were running high. The space program was under immense pressure to get a man to the moon before the end of the decade. On January 27, 1967, tragedy struck the Apollo program. Flight Director Gene Kranz remembered that day.
We were in mission control, testing the Apollo Command and Service Module. The test that day hadn't been going very well. We had problems with communications, we had problems with life support.
A flash fire broke out in the command.
We learned two words in our vocabulary. Tough meaning we will never get shirked from our responsibilities because we are forever for the case of
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. My name is Josh, and I'm going to be your host for the duration of your stay here today. But before we get started, just a few quick announcements. In the event we have to evacuate, the route of exit will be the same way. All of you just came in, downstairs, out the tram. But for some reason that area is blocked off. Don't worry, there's a secondary exit on the opposite side of the room. And if you can't make it down the stairs on your own, you stay with me and I will get you out because I intend on being rescued also. Also, ladies and gentlemen, our time here is not that great, so I am going to go ahead and get right into it. The position here in the middle, known as the flight director. Whenever it comes to manned space flight, ladies and gentlemen, there actually is no higher authority than the flight director. There is a protocol agreement between NASA and the United States government stating that they are authorized to do whatever is necessary to ensure safety of the crew, safety of the spacecraft, as well as completion of all the mission objectives. Now, there's actually no one in the world who can overrule a decision made by flight regarding space flight, not the director of NASA, not the commander of the spacecraft, and not even the President of the United States can overrule a decision made by that person. Now, to become a flight director, that's actually one of the hardest jobs in the world to obtain because not only do you have to be highly educated, but you also have to be proficient in at least 3 of the positions here in this room. Now, the other flight directors on top of that have to vote you into the position. There are about 30 of them, and it has to be a unanimous vote for you to get that job. Now, just to the right of the flight director is a position known as CAPCOM. Now, CAPCOM is short for Capsule Communications. That's a term which goes all the way back to the days predating the space shuttle. Now, Capcom, ladies and gentlemen, is primarily the only person speaking directly to the crew on board the spacecraft. See, if everyone in this room, in this facility, were able to talk to the astronauts, that would make their already difficult job a lot harder than what it already is. Now, also, ladies and gentlemen, everyone in this room will pass their messages to Capcom and puts them in order from most important to least important and sends them up in that order. Well, how do they know which one's most important? Well, Capcom is always going to be manned by an astronaut. And every astronaut, from the Mercury days through today, has spent time at that position as part of their job requirement. Also, NASA found out a long time ago that it takes an astronaut to talk to one because they're kind of like pilots and have their own shorthand language, and it'd be very difficult for someone like you or I to communicate with them effectively. While the astronauts are on board the space shuttle, their stay is usually only going to be about 2 weeks, and they have to stay on schedule to complete all of their objectives. And because of that, there is somebody in this room dedicated to keeping them on schedule. Now, that actually is just in front of Capcom, and that is the Flight Activities Officer, or FAO for short. Now, the FAO, they actually have...
Wow. Amazing, right? Full இங்க தான் இருக்குன்னு நினைக்கிறேன். ராக்கெட் எல்லாரும் இங்க தான் இருக்குது. இதோட பிக்சர் தான் இங்க.
But do they get to go in these pictures?
This will be a difficult shot.
So they can remember
that she has had some this time around. This photograph of us going to take for space shuttle.
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to NASA's Space Vehicle Mock-Up Facility. Here in front of us are life-size, high-fidelity mock-ups of some of the components that are found on board the International Space Station. Now, as far as the layout of these goes, it did have to be slightly altered from the real space station because some of these couldn't be stacked atop or below each other as they really are in space. However, on the inside, they're the exact same as the real thing, fully equipped with everything that the astronauts are going to need for day-to-day living, doing experiments, and even spacewalks. Now, on each module, you can see that there is a flag or multiple flags, and that will actually distinguish what country or countries contributed that particular module to the International Space Station. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the International Space Station will be completed sometime next year, and you can see what the finished result will look like with the model hanging on the opposite wall. Now, after the station is finally complete, NASA is going to retire the space shuttle. Eventually, they're going to make their way back to using a capsule. The next generation capsule is called Orion, and just basically the best way to describe it is like a Apollo capsule on steroids. It's about twice the size and can seat maximum crew of 6, but that would only be the trips to the space station. It would only have 4 astronauts inside of it on trips to the moon.